Last year, we talked about how the state of Overwatch Esports did heavily. Now that we're in 2023, it's time to see if anything has changed. We'll start by revisiting some of the events that ended 2022. I'll try not to take too long as we have more to talk about regarding this year specifically, so sorry if I don't go too in-depth for those. The Overwatch League Grand Finals was played between the San Francisco Shock and the Dallas Fuel. This was a legendary series that was full of emotion, great moments, and all 7 maps. Everything surrounding this finals was great, from the play to the crowd. It was some damn good Overwatch. The Dallas Fuel would go on to win it, which was a monumental moment for both the team and the players involved. I definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't already. I know I have, as I've already rewatched it twice. A 5-star classic. A lot has happened in Contenders since we last left it. There were lots of events that occurred across the many regions of the world, each with their own moments. The Summer Series would finish off in 2022. There were lots of matches and moments that occurred throughout all regions. I'm glad that everything finished well, specifically for the EU region, as the problems and drama we spoke about last time were resolved. Meanwhile in Australia, they hosted the Battle of the Dragons with the Shimada Showdown. The top 8 teams from the B-sides and the top 8 teams from the Open Division were invited to a 2-week throwdown to determine who was the best in Australia. Overall, a good event that wrapped up the season in the Australian region. Run It Back was Contenders' second global tournament, where they took a step back to recognize their origins and pay tribute to those in Tier 2 who stuck through all the chaos. Being played close to Overwatch 2's release also introduced Kiriko into the competition. It was cool to see Blizzard actually do something for the Tier 2 scene, especially considering the things that were going on during the summer series. The style for these was really cool, as there were new HUD effects and just a new atmosphere now that Overwatch 2 was finally here. In the final Contenders event of the year, the Pacific regions competed in the classic Pacific Showdown. Teams from previous Contenders tournaments in China, South Korea, and Australia New Zealand were invited to build out most of an 8-team bracket, with the rest being filled in from qualifiers. There was no better way to end off Contenders than with the Pacific Showdown. There was lots of good Overwatch and mini moments made. Something new that started at the end of 2022 was Overwatch Calling All Heroes. A joint program of Overwatch and the Overwatch League, Calling All Heroes' mission is to build an inclusive game and competitive environment for everyone. It pursued that goal by focusing on equity, visibility, and community support for underrepresented genders. Technically stretching into 2023, the Challengers Cup featured teams composed of underrepresented genders that all fought for a small prize pool. Apart from the action, there was also some new opportunities for people to get into casting, with some special training led by Zoe and Mr. X. The entire cup also showcased some of the individuals present within the cup in order to shed some light into their stories. I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised that Blizzard actually went and did something like this. The entire concept of Calling All Heroes was created to go alongside the Defense Matrix program in-game in order to create a better gaming environment. While some of the changes in-game can be debated whether or not they changed, one thing that's for certain is that Calling All Heroes is a W. Whether it be through raising awareness or offering opportunities, the mission of Calling All Heroes strengthens the community, which is always a good thing. Overall, 2022 actually ended very good compared to how it started. I'm very happy that things actually turned out better for everyone. Lots of great projects that were started, lots of great projects and events and showcases that made many countless memories, and 2023 would soon prove to be quite an interesting year for esports. So without any further ado, let's now talk about what's new in 2023. 2023 started off with the Overwatch Legends Battle, a double elimination tournament made up of the most talented teams of the game's history: GC Busan, Kongju Panthera, Lunatic High, and Runaway. Each roster was composed of some of the top players in each team's history, with a limit of 3 2022 Overwatch League players. This entire event was a blast from the past, as it felt like the old Apex days. As someone who's followed the game for such a long time, this hit all the nostalgia points. We got to see the return of some players and the return of some player combinations that we hadn't seen in a very long time. There's a sense of poetry to see a tribute of Overwatch's esports history now in the Overwatch 2 era. Even if you didn't know of the game during those times or follow the early Overwatch esports scene, the sheer amount of talent alone makes this event worth watching. Everyone should definitely check this out in their free time. Blizzard surprised us with the news that the Overwatch World Cup would return in 2023. As an avid World Cup enjoyer, I couldn't be any more happy with this news. For 3 long years, we've awaited the return of the World Cup, and now it's back and bigger than ever before. One thing Blizzard has done is offer more ways for players to participate in the Cup. Alongside regular country tryouts, a new avenue for players to compete for a spot on their country's team was introduced. This came in the form of an open tournament format, the World Cup Trials. Winning players of the trials will secure spots in their country's trials. Just seeing the World Cup environment back brought a big smile to my face. From the old HUD style now modernized, to just seeing the logo with the year 2023 on it, I can't wait until the final group stage when we get there. It's very, very nostalgic to me that I get to finally experience another World Cup, and now hopefully, now in the Overwatch 2 era, more people can now witness the greatness that is the Overwatch World Cup. One piece of news that will be important later that we have to talk about is the split between NetEase and Blizzard Entertainment. For those who don't know, NetEase is a publishing partner of Blizzard that helps them bring their games to the Chinese market. It was revealed at the end of 2022 that both companies could not reach a new agreement to renew their partnership, so Blizzard suspended their game service to the region entirely. Apart from affecting the general audience, this would shape the way Overwatch Esports would run, as an entire region of the game no longer exists. There are many changes to the structure of Path to Pro, which we'll see later, but the biggest blow was taken by the Overwatch League. As you all know, there are 4 teams that operate within China: the Shanghai Dragons, Guangzhou Charge, Chengdu Hunters, and Hangzhou Spark. Apart from the teams, there were also lots of players affected. Because of the split, the entire eastern region was placed in a weird limbo where no one knew what would happen to it. Many players that were a part of these Chinese teams would search for new ones in the west, causing one of the wildest off seasons the Overwatch League has ever seen. As for the teams, many would find new places of operation in Korea, and some even swapped over to the west. This entire situation is obviously very weird. There's not much the Overwatch League could have done in terms of salvaging the Chinese region, but it's good to see that they've adapted and are now offering more events and showcases overall. I'm not really sure how this will affect the overall esports scene moving forward, the Overwatch League to actually begin, but in terms of Blizzard and them losing probably one of their biggest markets, it is a blow nonetheless. But to see that the esports scene has adapted to it is definitely a good sign moving forward. Contenders saw a lot of changes in build-up for 2023. For the upcoming year, there were lots of changes to the environment of Contenders and the Path to Pro in general. Blizzard has invested in trying to expose more of the Path to Pro to the general audience. From Collegiate to Contenders, there's now more ways to get involved and more opportunities to watch. This is, of course, long overdue for the Tier 2 scene, as there's plenty of talent to look out for. It's also only fair, as the Tier 2 scene went through a lot last year alone. One of the biggest things for Contenders this time around is the Pro-AM. This year, Path to Pro shook things up with the inclusion of Contenders players in the 2023 Overwatch League season. The Pro-AM West is a small tournament in which Overwatch League and Contenders teams will fight for a prize pool of $100,000. The Pro-AM aims to maximize the number of games for all teams, present balanced competition, and provide global exposure to Contenders teams and players. The open division served as the Pro-AM qualifiers, where Contenders teams from NA and EMEA fought for spots in the Pro-AM. This was definitely a surprise for many, as the idea of Overwatch League and Contenders teams facing off ever sounded absurd. Nevertheless, there's plenty of good that comes from this, as apart from exposure, this clash of tiers provides us with some matchups that we would otherwise occur in our minds. For other Contenders regions, the normal Contenders series would return. As of the recording of this video, the spring series has begun in Korea. I can't really say much as it just began, but there are lots to look out for, as this series also serves as a qualifier for another Overwatch League Contenders showcase, for the East specifically. Going back to the Pro-AM West though, after the qualifiers, the Pro-AM teams were decided. Saints, Trick Room, Overwatch Esports, Timeless, and Wisp from NA, and Twisted Minds and Team Peps from EMEA qualified to join the rest of the Overwatch League West teams. The 20 teams were split into 4 groups of 5, all playing a round robin over 2 weeks before heading into an 8-team single elimination bracket in the final week. There were lots of bragging rights on the line, as Contenders teams were looking to prove that they could stand against some of the pro teams. Though the event isn't actually over as of the recording of this video, there have been plenty of moments to talk about, including some upsets from Contenders teams. The biggest one, of course, being Trick Room upsetting the Shock. Like I mentioned previously, it's good to see that Blizzard is actually acknowledging the Tier 2 scene and expanding on it. This crossover was a surprise for sure, but a welcome one. Before we end for today, I'd like to briefly touch on some things to look forward to as the year progresses. Obviously, the Overwatch League is set to officially begin later in April with the spring stage qualifiers. With all the region shifts and recent showcase in the Pro-AM, it'll be interesting to see how the teams fare against each other. Another big thing, of course, is the World Cup qualifiers, which are set to occur in June. Of the 36 countries competing, only 16 will advance to the group stage later in the fall. Also happening soon is the return of Calling All Heroes. The first major of the Challenger series will begin later this month, and we'll see other majors and minors until the big championship in February of next year. The Overwatch esports scene is definitely in a better spot now than it was last year. It's cool to see Blizzard make efforts to showcase more of the Tier 2 talent and Path to Pro with more wide-stream events and collaborations with the Overwatch League. It's also cool to see the celebration of sportsmanship in a better competitive environment with Calling All Heroes and the return of the World Cup. No matter how much of the esports scene you follow, if at all, we can all rejoice at the fact that Overwatch Esports is expanding and firing on all cylinders. And above all else, I'm just happy that there's more Overwatch for all to enjoy. The future's looking pretty bright, and I'm pretty sure we're only getting started.
The talent's fuel! Take their place amongst the stars! To burn brighter than them all! Rising